My mother's new fiancé has become a creep and ruined my life since I turned 18, and now that I know he's been doing the same thing to my little sister, who's a child, I'm doing whatever I can to ruin my mom's wedding and make them miserable. I, 20F, love my mother, 45F, more than anything. She was still with my father when my little sister, 13F, and I were born. We never had much insight into their relationship, but when I was 12, they officially divorced. While my younger sister still has contact with our father, I've completely turned away from him. He's an emotional manipulator who tried to tie us to him through blackmail and badmouthing our mother for all the years he was single after the divorce. But now that he's in a new relationship and has started neglecting us, he blames my sister and me for his being single and unhappy all these years prior. My younger sister was always his golden child, while I had a closer relationship with our mother. So when my mother met her new boyfriend 7 years ago, I was able to cope better with the fact of her having a new man by her side because of my age and my connection to her, rather than my younger sister, who at the time was still on the side of her father, who was so hurt by their divorce. We'll call my mother's new boyfriend Brian. Brian tried everything to win us over as children and to build a good relationship with us. Even though I was just going through puberty and my little sister didn't understand any of it, and we certainly made his life hell for a while because coming to terms with a new man by your mother's side is difficult, he never tried to replace our father, but was always there for us. He drove us to school, went out for ice cream with us, and when Mom took the sweets out of the shopping basket, he secretly put them back and gave them to us. Years have passed, and the hatred of Brian, by my little sister's father's fuel for her, has subsided. My mother and Brian met a year after the divorce. So I was back then round about 13 and my sister was 6. Everything was fine until I turned 18. I was now legally an adult. And even though this was the case, I still lived with Brian and my mother, who had been sharing an apartment for several years. A few days after my birthday, they announced to me that they were planning to build a house together and wanted to know if I was planning to move out, as they would otherwise take this into account when planning the house. Since I had just started going to university and didn't have a job anymore, I knew I wouldn't be able to afford my own apartment alone so easily, so I asked if it would be okay if I stayed with them for the time being. Everyone was okay with it, and so the house planning began. And that's when Brian started behaving strangely. He started making comments that became increasingly strange over time. One day, he was packing some laundry as we were getting ready to move all our clothes into the new house. He came into my room holding my red lace bra and asked me if it was mine or my mother's. For context, I wear a solid C cup, while my mother wears a full-on F cup. So there's absolutely no reason for confusion. When I explained to him that it was obviously mine, he said, "Too bad," and left the room with my bra in his hand. These types of comments about my body increased over time. During our first few weeks in the new house, I walked into the kitchen one morning wearing just a top and sweatpants, without a bra. Sitting alone at the kitchen table, he greeted me with a good morning and then made a comment about whether my breasts had grown and that I was really becoming a woman and shouldn't hide the rest of my body in such baggy pants. Even if it hadn't sunk in yet, it took 2 more comments about my butt in the following weeks, and the final straw, the touch of his genital area on my butt when I wanted to get a glass from an upstairs cupboard, and he did the same while I was standing in front of him. Terrified because I knew how much my mother loved this man, I told her about what had happened with Brian anyway. And she? She didn't believe me. To her, we were still the stubborn teenagers who didn't accept Brian because of our father's manipulation and tried to badmouth him. I never would have thought she would react like that, since we'd always had a good relationship and she should have known that I would never lie to her about something like that. With no other option and no other place to stay, I continued to endure him and his comments. I think she maybe talked to him about it, because after our argument, at least things never became physical between him and me again, but the comments remained. So, you can imagine that I wasn't too happy when the two announced a few weeks later they were now engaged. It was okay. Even though my dislike for Brian was growing, I still tried to be happy for my mother, who was now headfirst into wedding planning. A huge party with all of her friends and relatives. A few months passed, and my mother took my sister and me shopping for dresses to wear to the wedding. Since we don't have any other young children in the family, my little sister, even though she's already 13, was to play the role of flower girl, and I was to be the ring bearer. While we were in the store, we tried on a few dresses, and while I was able to find something relatively quickly because I'm not very picky, it took considerably longer for my little sister. She had something to complain about with every dress. Sleeves that were too short, too much lace showing her skin, or the dress was generally too short if it wasn't floor length. After she had tried on the 6th dress and was becoming more and more dissatisfied, I went to her in the fitting room and asked her what was wrong, as she really did look like the wonderful princess that she is in most of the dresses. What she said to me next shook my world. She told me she was afraid to wear anything too pretty because of what Brian would say to her. When I asked her to explain in more detail, she told me how Brian had been telling her for a few weeks what a great woman she was turning into and that she was already getting good melons, and how he had often asked to go to the bathroom urgently while she were in the bathroom having a shower, even though she had told him to wait because she wasn't dressed. That was the end of it for me. I just told my mom that we were going home because my sister wasn't feeling well and that we would go shopping another day. We couldn't even start the car before I started crying of rage. I yelled at my mom and told her what had happened. I accused her of not believing me and what Brian had done to us while she was ignoring it. I also told her that my sister is a child who had just had this happen to her and she is about to marry a fudging creep. Before my mom could even reply, I told my sister to get out of the car and we walked home. Since then, we've basically just been locked in our rooms at home. We usually eat in the afternoon when my mom and Brian are still at work or at night when they're already in bed so we don't run into them. I also found printed wedding invitations on the kitchen table, which tells me that my mom is still planning to go forward with the wedding. When my mother came home from work one day, she found me in the kitchen ripping up every single invitation. She screamed at me, which sparked another argument. I confronted her about how crazy anyone could be to even think about a wedding when this was happening to their own children. I also told her that I wouldn't attend the wedding not even for $1 million, just like my sister. She begged us to talk to Brian about it, but I don't feel it's our place to get into action with him, as she is our mother. This last one happened recently, and I really don't know how to handle the situation. I'm currently looking for a job while I'm at university so I can start saving up to move out of home. However, I don't know what to do about my sister, as I don't want her living with our father either. First of all, I want to thank all of you for your kind and numerous messages. The fact that I received such an overwhelming wave of support truly touched my and my sister's heart. I read every single comment. You made us feel seen, heard, and no longer alone. Of course, it would have been smart to move in the shadows. But here's what happened next. You probably remember the moment I tore up the wedding invitations. Brian eventually noticed all that's going on. And it was pretty obvious, he sensed something. As for my mom, she called in sick. She's been lying on the couch for days, refusing almost all communication. She cries constantly and avoids both me and my sister like we're ghosts. The only person she lets near her anymore is Brian. Naturally, I made sure to listen in on a conversation between them one evening while my sister and I quietly made something to eat in the kitchen. Brian sat beside her, held her hand, and said things like, "I don't know what's wrong with them. Their father ruined them, you're not to blame. You know me? I'd never do something like that. We'll get through this. Together. I just want what's best for the three of you." I honestly don't know if he believes what he's saying. Maybe he does. Maybe that's the most dangerous kind of person, the ones who repeat their lies until they feel like truth. And yes, as I already said about moving in the shadows and gathering evidence, to report him. Sadly, this isn't a movie and Brian isn't some dumb NPC who carries on with their act, even though he knows he's on the watch now, 'cause we told Mom. As you can now guess, Brian completely stopped. No touching. No comments. He doesn't even look at us anymore. No other bathroom stunt. Nothing. He avoids us entirely. Ever since I confronted my mom, he's been acting like the perfect, loving stepfather, concerned, calm, keeping his distance, probably to avoid more stress. But we know better. This isn't remorse. It's strategy. He's scared. Scared we might collect this proof. Scared someone might believe us. That's what I think. And that's why, for my sister and me, it was crystal clear, this won't work anymore. We need to leave. Now. As many of you suggested, we made a last-ditch attempt to contact our father, something that was incredibly hard to do. And as expected, nothing. He has his new life. New girlfriend. Her daughters. New family. Even the horse he once gifted my sister, likely more of a power play against our mom than a loving gesture, because she refused to get her one and spoil her, is the only reason she even goes there occasionally. Besides the child support, he offers nothing. No calls, no interest. As soon as Brian's name came up, he was done. That has nothing to do with me. Stop trying to ruin my peace. So yeah, total dead end. Next, I called our maternal grandparents. And the worst part? My mom and Brian beat us to it. They apparently warned them about us during a phone call, spinning stories about half-truths, misunderstandings, and emotional confusion. My grandparents literally told me, "You need to work this out with your mother. This is a family matter, don't be like that." I wanted to cry. Actually, I did cry. But luckily, there's always one person in these stories who's got both a brain and a heart, my aunt. When I called her, and my cousin, I broke down and told them everything, and she didn't hesitate. Her daughter, my older cousin, had moved in with her boyfriend, who happens to be a lawyer. By fate? A few months ago, and their attic apartment in the multifamily house has since been used as a guest space. She offered it to us. Immediately. No conditions. No questions. My cousin even said she would ask her boyfriend if he would think through the situation and see what we can do and to send him all we have, and trust me, we may haven't much but we've been keeping track. We wrote down every inappropriate comment. My sister's statements. My statements. And now, my cousin even admitted that Brian had made several inappropriate jokes in front of her, too. So there it is, 3 people. All saying the same thing. Even if we don't have videos or recordings, we have 3 witnesses. And sometimes, that's enough to not feel so alone and powerless anymore. But there's more. My sister's teachers have been informed by our aunt. I also had a long, emotional talk with her homeroom teacher, who was absolutely shocked. She promised to keep a close eye on my sister, especially during pickup times. If Brian ever shows up at her school, there will be immediate action. With my sister's consent, the information has been shared with the full teaching staff. The school is behind her. That gave us so much strength. And yes, my mom knows where we're going. I told her, if you or Brian come anywhere near my aunt's house, we're calling the police and Child Protective Services. There are 3 people who can testify against him. And I mean it. We haven't officially filed charges yet, but I think the threat alone worked. She knows that keeping Brian comes at a price, losing her daughters. And still. For now, she chooses him. I also told her not to contact us until she's gotten help. Real, professional help, not comfort from Brian, not more I don't know what to believe anymore. I never thought I'd say this, but I want no relationship with a mother who looked the other way while her children were being destroyed. For now, we're moving out during this week. We're only taking essentials, but it's gonna be fine. I'm still applying for jobs to support us while I'm studying, but it's a start. A real one. And the wedding? I don't know if my mom still plans to go through with it now that we're leaving. But the venue is still booked. Her dress is bought. My aunt was supposed to make the wedding cake, and so on. I want to see if she'll still choose him after this. As much as I still love her, if my cousin's lawyer boyfriend gives us the green light, we'll go ahead and press charges against Brian. She doesn't know that part yet. But you know what? This isn't our loss. It's hers. Even though I also view her as Brian's victim in this situation too. There will probably be one final update. Thank you all again, truly. You gave us the strength to stop being silent.